There we go. We're live at Expert35. I'm your host, Gabriel Garcia, and as promised, 35 different industries, expert from each industry, talking about the challenges, the hardship, and the opportunities. And today we're going to talk about when there's challenges, what are the opportunities, entrepreneurship, the opportunities that are coming out of these events. And I got Aaron with me today. Aaron, thanks for being with us today.
Thanks for having me, Gabriel.
No worries, sir. It's going to be a really interesting show because the economy is changing, jobs are changing. What people thought was safe is no longer safe. And so that is just a boiling pot for new opportunities. And you come from a wide range of entrepreneurship thing. You've flipped homes, you build homes, you've done it all. Tell us a little bit about how did you become an entrepreneur?
So entrepreneurship is really you have to start that journey with the state of mind. Mindset is where it all starts. I started by flipping homes. Didn't really know I was going to get into entrepreneurship. It was almost kind of not a mistake, but an accident getting in there, and I'm glad I did. I started off as a musician, a professional musician, and I could not get a job. Someone to hire me from, let's say, Wednesday to, sometimes we paid Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday nights, and no one really hired me. I still needed to make money when I wasn't playing music. So it kind of forced me into becoming a capitalist, which is entrepreneurship. So I started, and this is where all entrepreneurs should start, is starting to get that mindset. A couple books I have in mind that really helped me out on this journey was Robert Kiyosaki, the Rich Dad Poor Dad series. Really good at putting your mind in place to start your entrepreneurship career, I guess let's say. Another book is called Fortune at Your Feet by A.D. Kessler.
Mm-hmm.
Those are real good books. Those are really good books. This A.D. Kessler book is a couple decades old, but it's still relevant today. So when I started with the music, I was flipping homes on the side to make money, and that eventually turned in. And as with any entrepreneur, you get kind of bored with one, and you got to move on to the other, but you don't want to start something and lay it down and not let it mature before you move on to the next thing. Otherwise, you get nowhere. So as Gabe was saying earlier on when I was talking to him, you don't want to sit there and water the grass. You want to plant the grass, and that's what true entrepreneurs do. But you got to make sure that grass you're planting at least stays alive.
And let's talk a little bit about that structure, because we already got people asking questions, right? And let me put this up real quick. If you want to join the conversation, text Expert35 to the number on the screen. You'll be able to be part of the other announcements whenever we go live, and you'll also see how you can join be an expert on the show. I got Aaron. He's going to talk about entrepreneurship, his whole story. If you want to learn a little bit more about him, text Expert30 and be in contact with Aaron. Guys, this is such an important ecosystem, but there's so many things out of whack. This is the highest number of DBAs we've ever seen registered in the state, right? And DBAs are dangerous, right? Because you're doing business directly on your liable. So we're going to talk a little bit about that structure and what you've done, Aaron, to kind of protect your assets, to also legitimize the business. And, we can bring in a lot of the other experts. We can totally bring in Jana. You need insurance. Do you have insurance, Aaron?
Do I have insurance? Oh, yeah.
We got more
than I probably need.
We are insurance's like best dream. They're like, oh my God, like I want that guy, because we're popping new ideas, and you don't always want the same insurance, right? There's different ideas for different coverages. And also, there's times when, 1 year I used 3 different policies, and it was incredible, right? Have a good accountant, have somebody talk to professionals. So my first question to really get you kind of one is like, did you have some mentorship, or do you wish you had some mentorship when you got started?
I wish I had more mentorship when I got started. Your best mentor is always going to be yourself. You're the best driver for yourself. When it comes to job security, and especially in these times, there's no better job security than yourself. When you're talking about insurance, it starts with yourself. Set up insurance policies within yourself. When you're setting up your business, for example, or you're flipping homes, you don't want to set up one business entity and put your name on that business entity. Because if you're a true entrepreneur, you're going to have multiple business entities, and you want to put different companies in each business entity. And that way, if you're you're not liable for all of your business under one entity. So if you get taken advantage of, if someone tries to sue you for whatever the reason may be, you don't take down the entire empire. You just take, I mean, they just take whatever that one entity. So for home flippers, for example, I buy every home under a different entity. So if there's a problem, they can take that one home. They're not going to take all 30.
Right. And unless once they become, they're high risk, right? And we'll put a link to Bradley. He's been our lawyer. He's been on board before, one of our experts. But you actually don't even need to go through a lawyer. Like, you can go to the Secretary of State, and you don't even have to go through a rocket lawyer. Now, I recommend you talk to someone and make sure you know how to file these. But it's as simple as filing articles of incorporation. An LLC. Are your LLC single member, multiple members, or a mixed batch, depending on how you work?
Single member LLCs is what I typically do, because I'm kind of a loan shark. What I mean by that, a loan person, not a loan shark.
Not a loan.
A loan minnow or whatever you call it. So don't get eaten by the sharks, though. That's the problem. So I guess I lost track of what the question was again. Can you repeat that?
So are they single members? And you said that most of your LLCs are single members.
Right. So it also depends if you got a partner. I mean, if you have a partner and you're married with that person, you're going to go with an LLP, which is a partnership. It's the same thing as a limited liability company. And something else that people should know, I don't want to get too technical, and I don't want to step on any CPA's toes in this room, but after you get the LLC,
we're not lawyers, blah blah blah. Okay, good. Go.
I'm not a lawyer either. That's another thing. So you need to categorize your company into an S corporation or C corporation, and those have different tax implications attached to them. So, for example, I have an S corp, so all the money that's made in one of the LLCs I have for construction or for my Majestic Stone company, it goes straight through the company, straight to you. So your company and you are pretty much the same person. And there's benefits to that, and there's also not some benefits. It just depends on how you want to grow your company and what you want to do with your company.
No, absolutely, and we can get into a lot of things. The good thing about an LLC is that it's not directly attached to you yourself, so your assets are protected. They can, of course, go after your assets if they're going after the LLC and you. But one of the things that I've also seen, especially in partnerships, is you create an LLC, and then that LLC is what partners up. Now, what's interesting about that setup is, especially if it's a long play and you're not in it for the whole long haul, is you can always sell your LLC, right? And all of a sudden with that, you're selling that partnership, and you don't have to go through an act of Congress, which maybe all the partners need to sign this article that's going to say that you can leave. Well, no, you never leave. That's a great way to buy into bars and nightclubs. And people are asking, what are great opportunities right now? It's like, bars and nightclubs. They're looking for for the next round.
To climb on to your question, to expand on the question you had in these times. Well, and I guess Jennifer's asking, what is the biggest lessons you've learned? Well, I guess some of the biggest lessons is like I said, you start reading some of these books and get your mindset to be an entrepreneur. That's what drives the rest of the game. Job security is a big problem for a lot of people. I mean, I don't know what is job security, everybody. I mean, you've been told your whole life you got to go to school, you got to get this degree in this field. So when you get out, you get a good job with good pension, good retirement, and so forth, good pay, and that's called job security. I've learned, and maybe this is the biggest lesson I've learned, is that job security is really not what we have all been led to believe it is. I believe job security is really within ourselves, and the knowledge that we give to ourselves, the mindset that we give ourselves. If
I'll
you don't
add to
get
that.
mindset,
You said something really powerful earlier. You said your number one partner and your number one mentor is yourself, right? And I think that's so true. Now, it's only based on how well you train that tool. You're a tool, right? Like, you're a machine, and like if you don't practice, if you don't train it right, you can also incorrectly guide yourself. But energy, that influence that gets you up every morning, because that is the security. That I invest. I'll pop this question because I think that's a really good question. So, what funding options are available right now? It's like, I don't invest in companies. I invest in people, because that, Aaron is a true entrepreneur. You get up every day because you are in that mode of like, the company is, you're not there because the company's up. You're there because you're up, because you want to grow, because you want to change. And,
right.
and I think that's kind of what you're getting to is like, how do you build that? And what's the job security is you, right? Like you're the guy
Job
that gets up
security.
anymore.
and if you're gonna, don't be afraid of making mistakes, because that's the biggest teacher. I mean, that is,
Right.
I'd have to say the biggest mistakes have also been my biggest lessons. And when I learn those become very valuable, and maybe other people don't know that. And
Right.
that's what separates me from other people sometimes. And when they say, well, how do you know that? And I said, well, I spent a lot of money figuring that out
Exactly.
And so, yeah. And, I'm amazed by what people think of job security. And I talk to investors all the time, and they say, well, what can I, like this guy's asking, Greg's asking, what funding options are available right now? And it's one of these things where it's talking to somewhat funny, because I know what I'm capable of. And if I know my job security and where I'm at, they always say, what's the risk involved? And I said, well, for Aaron, the risk is zero, because failure is not an option.
Right.
You literally can work and work and work and keep working and never fail. I believe it was, I think Henry Ford failed 5 times, went bankrupt 4 times before he ever got Ford Motor Company successful. And obviously Ford's still around.
Right.
If you start reading the history of some of these really successful entrepreneurs in the past, they didn't have an option that was failure. So right. I tell all my investors,
there's no, they say, burn your boat. That's a really interesting. I'm going to quote John, one of the guys that works with us. He says, "Man, you got to burn your boat, because sometimes you're holding onto the edge instead of being able to swim out there, and you realize when you're out there, man, you're able to do so much more." And really, so to address Greg, there's so many funding options. Private, go with your friends and family, right? Show them the idea. Obviously, there's lenders and there's banks and there's things like you can also put a collateral. I've seen people start companies with like $2,000 because they put something. They went to a pawn shop, and like this is something they didn't need. But I prefer one is make sure you have a little bit of a nest to be able to grow, because it does take a little bit of time to get that. And the entrepreneurship we're talking about, I come more from the tech world where people are just programming and building, thinking that they will come. But we're really talking about the heart of entrepreneurship right now, which is all these people that have skills, all these people that got laid off of these large companies, and they've got a truck, they've got a trailer, and they can be carpenters, we can talk a lot about the home skills, but also, they just have technical skills. How do you tell them, hey, what's a good place and resource to really start building that company and start getting those referrals and start getting the business off the ground? What would you say would be the next logical step and that would give them some resources and opportunities to build that business?
Well, it's definitely interesting times we're living in right now. And one of the things that me and my group of colleagues have sat down and discussed the last couple months is as entrepreneurs, where's the silver lining? Where is, just like with, if you're going to invest in the stock market, for example, a lot of people say, well, stock market's really low right now, it's a bad time to invest, or it's really high and it's a bad time to invest. It really depends on how you look at it. There's never a bad time to invest in the stock market. I don't care what people say. It just depends on when you do and what your strategy is and what your game plan is. So
yeah, buy low and sell high. There's always something low.
Exactly. So the same thing happens here. And I'm looking at this sort of, all these people got laid off from COVID when COVID came around. So what's happening is now they're stuck in their houses. They're looking for ways to support their families, and they're coming out with new ideas. And I would say I'm really curious to see how many new businesses come out of this at the end of this. I mean, you got these old businesses kind of just got washed away with new businesses coming. Now with the new businesses, these are startups, so they're really small businesses starting out of their homes. And we all know what happens when small businesses start to get successful. They start to grow and expand. And what's going to happen here, and the timing is what we're really questioning, whether it's going to be months or a year or two. But either way, me and my colleagues are going to be ready for it, because we're starting some new ground up construction build for office warehouse spaces, because we are recognizing that when people are building these companies inside their homes and they start to grow, and when we come out of this thing, there's going to be thousands, hundreds of thousands, if not millions of new companies coming out looking for space to work out of, and there's might be a shortage coming up soon for that. So because they're not going to go straight to the big office spaces, they're going to go into the medium-sized stuff. So I'm really looking at that. So for me as an entrepreneur, me and my colleagues are literally going, where's the silver lining in this crisis? Well, you just kind of thumb it through in your head and start to go, well, what's happening now and what's going to happen in the future and what's going to be needed. Right. And created a supply for that demand, and you're going to be okay.
Well, and if you set up yourself to service those companies, right? So I love the office warehouse space, right? Logistics, we're seeing a huge upswing, and people don't know this. People think, oh, if I go directly with UPS, I'm cutting out the middleman. Like, no, the middleman can get you better pricing than UPS because they don't want to deal with you, right? So as a small company, go ahead and talk to companies, you know, like Parham Logistics, or like somebody that's local, that's a broker, because they know exactly what you're doing, and they'll be able to put you in there. They'll be able to put you on less than a truckload or whatever. All those different pieces make a difference. And we were talking about Frezi Travels yesterday, and travel, they're like, oh, I can do it myself. It's like, no, like these people have access to these huge hosts. They can buy stuff cheaper than you can, right? Join a group. Are you as a builder? I'm sure you can be part of a builders group that buys in bulk, right? And so you can buy sheetrock instead of buying it, you know, from a Home Depot. You can buy it, you know, delivered larger scale. Everything becomes at a different price point, and you got to start thinking about not only group buying, but for group policies, for insurance, right? What association are you a member of that you say, hey, these are good associations to, not just for the referral, but also for the group buy ideas? Is there something you would recommend in the construction?
Obviously, I'm in BNI, and BNI is a very good networking. I also am in GHBA, which is Greater Houston Builders Association, and that's really specific for people in my industry, for construction. I would have to say I had something to say a second ago, but that part of what's, I guess I'd have to say, part of the beauty of being an entrepreneur and owning several different things, and like my stone countertop business here, we import stone countertops for a lot of our jobs, and that import capability has gotten us to where we have a unique position to import pretty much anything we want from overseas, mainly Malaysia instead of China now. That, you know, we cut out several middlemen here. So for me, I've just learned that my entrepreneurship has got me to where I build businesses that can supply for my other businesses.
Right. And we talked about this offline. Have multiple ideas, irons in the ore, because that's the fluctuation that we'll see, right? Different things come up at different times. Here's a great question from Shalini. Shalini wants to know, do you recommend doing all of it yourself, a small business, or hiring staff or outsourcing? And that's a really interesting question at this time.
Yes. And you said it all from the beginning to the end on that question, because you start with yourself. It always starts with yourself. And like I said, you got to get that mindset correctly. If you don't get that mindset correctly, you're not going to have some cash to fall back on. You're going to get started too soon without cash and fall short. Or if your mind is not set, you will get discouraged, having to get up in the morning, let's just say, and say, well, I got nothing to do today except for whatever I come up with. You have to find a way to be productive at that, and that's effective and produces something. You know, once you get those three things down and you get out of bed, then the next things start to fall in place. So it starts with yourself, and then when it gains traction and you start to make a little money, again, whether you have a little nest egg to decide to keep you living for a while, or you're going to use that income to supplement that, or are you just going to go ahead and start hiring someone else? I'm pretty aggressive with my companies. So as soon as I start making a profit, I hire somebody, and it's usually I hire someone in-house staff. If I can't find one right away, I also outsource it until I find somebody.
Well, here's a real point. What you're really nailing is there's a difference between working in the business and working on the business.
Big time.
And And that's the balance. And I think that's what Shalini is also asking, right? If you are working on the business, like let's just simple example, if you're mowing lawns, right? When you're mowing the lawn, you can't sell the other lawn, right? Now, if you're mowing the lawn and that gets you the referral across the street, yes, you're selling. But the minute you stop selling because you're too busy, you got to hire someone, because at that point your business is no longer growing.
Correct.
So that's almost like the tipping point. Think about the moment it was like, well, I'm not going to pay, $600 for an accountant to do my taxes. Like, all right, if it's a weekend and you have nothing to do and you don't need that time and you don't need to recharge, go ahead, do it. But if you don't know how to do it and you're going to spend a week's worth and now you're not going to be able to sell for a week, now you're backlogged and you saved $600 and you lost $4,000 of potential income.
Correct. So, you got to question what your time is worth.
Mm-hmm.
And then you kind of compare it to everything else. And if you say, well, this is not worth my time, that's when you start to know pretty much right away, you got to get someone else to do it. Even if it costs you money, because if it costs you $500 to hire someone else to do it, you might be losing $1,000 somewhere else.
Yeah, so, and if you don't know how to do it, if you don't know how to do something, and I value education, so I love doing it because sometimes I have the time. But if you don't have the time or the knowledge to do it, sometimes it's better to pay somebody to do it, but watch them, right? Learn what they're doing. Always take it as an opportunity to learn the craft, learn the skills, because none of this is rocket science. Like, we
right.
put it on the moon and it was lowest bidder. And you have more of that technology on your phone. I don't know what my phone is. I don't think I brought my phone today.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah, it's great.
Or you could all do it the way I did it, which I wouldn't recommend, is become a musician, which is really hard to do. Try to become a professional musician, and then you're traveling all the time, and you have all this time to deal with something. I have to learn a second language or get a PhD or something, which I kind of did. I started reading these books, and I got my mindset, because I knew that if I didn't find something else, I'd be stuck in this industry as a musician living in a trailer park.
Well, babe, I got to show this. Hold on, we're going full. There it is. This is you, right? Rocking out. And you play, what is it? You play a Les Paul Studio Plus,
yes.
Right? Is that what you're playing
on a Fender Hot Rod Deluxe, one single 112. Nothing really fancy on the amp, but it goes really good combination with that guitar. It sounds really good.
Man, I love the idea. I mean, that's what you do. You're a composer. You're always creating something. You're playing. You're like orchestrating all this music and directing. And I think that anybody that has an angle of music is always going to be like hyper creative as well. I've got a great question from Jennifer. She's asking, how do you navigate doing business with family?
Yeah, so we had to,
yeah, there you go. Go for it.
That one's not for everybody. You have to know your family. That's number one. And then you kind of have to just jump in. It's like, is that water cold or hot? Well, let's just jump in and find out. So that's what we did. And I made sure, of course, at the time, and I still am the sole proprietor of the company. So, certain, maybe not good, but a certain owner with some sense of fairness to make this happen, because we basically said, well, if I own the company, I know I can. And I've had partners before, and they derailed me several times. I tend to work better alone, but my family also knows that I'm very fair. So I actually really put my family ahead when it comes to pay than myself, because the idea is if I'm the owner, I get what's left after they get paid. If there's nothing left, I get nothing. If there's $1 million left, I get $1 million. So, that's just that's part of the mentality that you have to have as an owner and entrepreneur.
Right. And I'll add to that. I never worked with family when I first started. I waited until I was set, and then I could bring him in. And it was very much, there was like a contract and an agreement that was very spelled out. That way we were working when we were working, and we were family when we're not working.
Yes. That's very important.
And that made it very, very fun. And even with some of the businesses that didn't succeed, it didn't matter because it was very clear. And I think that communication is important. But I wouldn't recommend jumping into an idea that neither one of you really know about with family right away. I would recommend you talk and really just lay it out, spell it out, write out an agreement. And it's not like a partnership agreement. It's really a strategy agreement where you know who's going to do what. Because at the end of the day, as entrepreneurship, Like if the bathroom is dirty, somebody's got to clean it. You don't just boom, like all those things cost money. And I think that's really valuable.
And
I started my company on May the 13th, and I went into a bank, and the bank looked at me. He's like, "Are you serious? Like, you're gonna start tech studios on Friday? Like, most companies fail." I'm like, "That was in 2003," and my first client was like, well, my first business sale. The guy kept telling me like, "Hey, like you shrank every time you said that like you've only been in business 3 days. You're still here." And that's what I hear from you, like, get up every day, be there for your family, be there for your friends, be always open and communicate, because that's so important. If you're not clear, if you're not honest, it doesn't matter who you're doing business with, you're going to be out of business.
One thing I can say to help people out about what you just said is, if you're getting up already to go work for someone else, you can do it for yourself.
Yeah.
That should be the motivation right there. You're going to get up no matter what you have to do. Might as well do it for yourself. And as far as the family goes, doing business with family, that kind of plays into my whole job security thing. Everything I do is job security oriented. So it's part of my strategy. If I knew that my family could work with me and I could work with them, then I knew there's longevity there, and I can really spend a lot of time training and putting skills into my brother and my sister-in-law and my sister that I know are going to be there in the long haul. So that's super helpful to know that they're not just going to split after 2 years after they've gained a lot of knowledge and become very valuable in your company. So to me, that was an idea of, well, I'll do this as long as the rest of my family does it with me. And they all said, of course. So, and it's been very fruitful so far. I've been in business for 7 years. Majestic Stone's been in business for 7 years. That's our main baby. That's the one I promote the most. Yes, I'm a musician. Yes, I build new construction, ground up construction, even some remodels. I don't really promote that as much. And then at the end of this whole long trail of entrepreneurship, and everyone's probably asking, and I get asked a lot, is, well, you quit your passion, music, to basically support for your family and start your own business, and you're telling me you're not making even a lot of money here in 7 years because you keep reinvesting to grow the company, which I do. So I have not had a pay increase in over 7 years. And they're asking, why would I do this all? And the reason is when I'm 60 something years old, I will be playing music to my heart's desire, and that's the end goal. So I do have an end goal that gives me desire to move towards. And, owning my own studio and recording and making music, I continue doing right now, but definitely not in the expanse that I would like to. And that's the end goal for me. And that's what drives me to do all this, really. And my family, of course, I got to.
Well, and that's what gets you out of bed. I see the energy. I feel the energy. As a true entrepreneurship, my favorite part of the show, 3 things to do now. What do you recommend?
3 things to do right now. Well, it just depends on where you're at. That's a hard and loaded question. But again, if you want to be an entrepreneur, I would start with get your mindset. And once you do that, then start investing in yourself, and then put one foot forward and see what happens. There's a lot. If you're talking about finances and investment, there's a lot of good areas for investing right now, despite what people are saying, because things are cheap. Real estate seems to be cheaper. Stock market seems to be cheaper. There's just good times if you have some cash to spare, because it will come back eventually, and then that's when you make the money. But 3 things you should do right now, like that's I just give you a few, I think.
And that's so true. That's great advice. Is like, get your mindset. Earlier you talked about some of the resources. We're gonna put those in the notes. You got all kinds of questions. Aaron, thank you so much for being with us on Expert35. We so needed that, like, enthusiasm, the energy, because I'm already hyped up. I was like, let's build. Yes. This is the time to plant grass. This is the time to look at opportunities, right? All these venues, all these events, all these places are getting shake up. So there's going to be new services that are going to be provided. There's going to be different cleaning services. There's going to be different ideas of, you want to know what the waiting line is going to be like, right? The old days of showing up to a restaurant to sit down and eat will change, because it's all going to be reservation only, especially for a while, right? And PPE, I think somebody was talking about, Brian, one of our roofers, was talking about, wholesaling ways to be able to make sure people can refill their bottles of, Purell and all their like disinfectant. And that's a whole industry, but also at the same time.
Good example there, Gabe, is that these people who are creating, they have to say, well, we need hand sanitizer. So they switched all from making whiskey to making just alcohol and hand sanitizer. That's exactly what I'm talking about and what you're talking about. And
yeah.
No,
and I mean, people are changing the way they live. They're looking at cost savings, and now people are realizing, wow, I can cook at home like they used to cook at home, right? So a lot of people delivering food. We've got another entrepreneurship coming with ideas for fresh food delivery. I mean, that's going to be a way that people are going to want to live, and I think entertainment's going to change as well. So no, super timely, great advice, Aaron. Thank you so much for being with us. We love what you do. We love the energy.
Thanks for having me.
Would love to have you back for like a powwow on like just ideas. So keep us on the radar. Sure. I'm gonna let you loose and go answer questions because we got a bunch of things we didn't even have time to answer. But I gotta go zoom out because we've got your majestic stone. Talk a little bit about that. Here, what's in the background? You made this guitar, right? Tell us a little bit about that guitar in the back.
Oh, yeah. All right. Well. That one right there used to be an old, I don't know, it was a Korean Fender Squire. Yeah, it was junk. And I took that cheap guitar and I put a different neck on it. I sanded down the fretboard. I put in some Seymour Duncan single coil pickups. And it's basically my Frankenstein, so I call it Frankie, and it can definitely wail on the stage.
I bet
it's my custom guitar.
Well, I think that's what you're showing. You're showing don't be afraid. So if it's scarier to be working for someone and knowing that you can lose a job like that, right? Every day waking up knowing that hey, it's on you. It's actually not that scary, right? It's like they say, if you're holding onto the edge, it's scary, but once you're in the middle of water and swimming, oh man. The freedom is unbelievable. I recommend you become an entrepreneurship. We're going to have a powwow on how to like file for LLCs. We're going to do a whole little series on entrepreneurship. Aaron, you're coming back to Expert35. Thanks for being with us today.
Excellent. Thank you for having me.
All right, guys. That was Aaron. I'm going to put up his majestic stone. There he is. I'm going to put his guitars. Is him playing his guitar. Man, would love to have you guys. He's going to come back because we got to talk more about the opportunities. There's so much entrepreneurship energy in the United States right now, and this is a really good start. So again, thanks for joining us today on Expert35. We'll see you guys soon.